Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Today, I want to continue after a few very busy and relatively stressful days with my little tag celebration. Today, I want to try to answer the Booktuber Bio Tag. I've seen some really beautiful versions of this going around, and I've enjoyed them immensely. And when that happens over and over, you know the creator of the tag has come up with some really thoughtful questions. And that creator is Jessica at the channel Jessica's Library Card, a great name. Thank you very much for this one. I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat and Shelly at Shelly Swear Engine, both of whom said outlandishly kind things about this channel. Let's get straight to the prompts. The first one, who are you? Share a little bit about yourself. Well, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, which is a little intense these days, as honestly most of the world is, because of one of my fellow district area residents. I was raised in the South, attended college in New England, married a New Yorker, and have in-laws in Florida. So I feel connected to the whole East Coast of the United States. As for work, I'm an historian by training. I've written a couple of academic books, and I used to be a professor for a few years at Gallaudet University, a college for deaf students. I temporarily left my professorship, partly in order to stay home with my new baby, something I never thought I would do until I actually had a child in my arms. As my son Abe grew up, I continued to stay away, and eventually we decided as a family to homeschool for kindergarten. We had such an amazing experience together that we continued until Abe left for college. There are a lot of assumptions about and stereotypes of homeschooling, and we definitely didn't fit them. DC is incredibly diverse and cosmopolitan and filled with huge numbers of museums and research facilities and a great variety of cultures and communities, and we tried to take advantage of as much of that big world as we could. Rather than trying to protect him from everything that might be going on at the local school, we were trying to broaden what he saw and learned and who he met and befriended. It was a fantastic experience for all three of us. Abe recently graduated from college. After majoring in English literature, he is now a theater sound engineer. In addition to homeschooling, I continued to write during those years, to do some freelance academic editing, etc. And then a couple of weeks before Abe headed to college, I received a breast cancer diagnosis and went through a pretty difficult year of treatment. And right as I was starting to get my strength back, my husband David was diagnosed with brain cancer with a very short prognosis. He lived much longer than anyone expected. That last year before he died was pretty hard, and he was suffering a lot. I bring all this up because it is a core part of who I am, but also because I allude to him very frequently here on Booktube, and sometimes new viewers don't quite understand what has happened. This summer will be the second anniversary of David's death, and while I still miss him terribly, I have an amazing group of local friends that have felt like family to me for decades now, and they've helped me move forward. A lot of booktubers have helped me too, some very knowingly and deliberately, and some just because of their warm-hearted friendship. A little more on that later. The second question, how long have you been on Booktube? 5.5 years, I think. Crazy. I've never been an incredibly scheduled type of booktuber, putting up videos on particular days or at particular times, but I've been especially spotty for the last, 2 years or so. So 5.5 years, but there have been some big gaps in there. Question 3, what kinds of books do you love to read? Has Booktube had an effect on what you read? I tend to read a fair bit of backlisted fiction, classics, but also other books that have lasted beyond the pages of the New York Times bestseller list. I also read a lot of nonfiction, some academic history, which I only talk about here sparingly, a lot of biographies, especially of literary figures and artists and the like, quite a few memoirs and essay collections, etc. And a fair bit of that nonfiction are new releases, unlike the fiction I tend to read. Well, I don't think Booktube has had an enormous effect on the kinds of books I read. You all have certainly exposed me to books I had never heard of before, but have come to love. And you've inspired me to pick up books that you've loved that I still haven't read yet. The fourth question, what do you enjoy about making Booktube videos? Almost all of it. First, I love the fact that pretty much all of the time I'm off Booktube, I'm thinking about what to talk about with y'all next time. And often I'll also be thinking about questions that y'all have raised. And I really love that process when I sit down to plan out a video before I start filming. Perhaps unusually, I adore doing the editing work. I don't do any fancy editing, but I cut out the very long pauses that sometimes happen, well, often happen, when I'm trying to figure out how to turn a basic idea into words. Video editing is totally unlike anything I've ever done before, and it's been thrilling to learn the basics of how to do it. This might sound obnoxious or maybe conceited, but I also really like playing back the whole video right before I upload it. I do it partly to catch any egregious mistakes, which often I don't catch even when I try, or which sometimes I just decide to let stand. As an introvert, though, I sometimes panic about the idea of putting myself out there, and I'm honestly really uncomfortable with myself in this role, abstractly. But when I see myself on film, I'm always a bit shocked that I usually seem calm and reasonable, no matter how uncomfortable I might have been feeling during filming. In fact, I think proofing my videos has made me quite a bit more confident about public speaking. Next, what do you not enjoy about making Booktube videos? I absolutely hate that moment at the very start of a video when I first turn on the camera and have to start talking. When I first started this channel, I really didn't think I could survive it. I still hate those first sentences, but it's gotten easier, and now, within just a moment, I usually feel more at home. I'm able to tap into that idea that instead of just talking to a machine, I'm really talking with you all. Another thing I really hate about Booktube is if I bring books to hold up on screen, I have to put them away. Question number 6. What video on your channel are you the most proud of? I'm not sure. Proud of is not exactly the right word, but I'm extraordinarily pleased to have videos where I chat about books with my spouse David, as well as the videos I made with my son, who is a huge Shakespeare nerd. Actually, I'm really proud of a set of videos where I talked about Willa Cather with other booktubers over Zoom. But my pride has nothing to do with the quality of the videos. I was terrified and really awkward, especially in the first video conversation. And I'm not proud of that awkwardness, but I was very pleased that I did it. And I was brave enough to actually put it up there online. And it quickly became easier. Number 7, is there anything you wish was different about Booktube? Maybe this is more about YouTube than Booktube specifically, but I'm perpetually behind on watching Booktube, and sometimes manage to miss some of the videos from booktubers who have meant the most to me over all my time here. I would like to be able to have 2 subscription lists. One made up of all the new videos that I would love to watch if I have the time, and the other made up of new videos by booktubers I think of as real friends, whose videos I might prioritize when I'm short on time. Of course, the consequence of that sorting might be that I don't befriend newer folks, and that would definitely be a shame. The 8th prompt. Name 3 books you've reviewed on your channel that you feel represent you as a reader. What an interesting question. it makes me realize that I haven't talked about some of my very favorite books in any deep way. The idea of making a video really going into the weeds about Jane Eyre disturbs me a bit, although I plan to finally do it this Victober. I worry that going into depth on such books that feel like they're part of me might sort of set them in stone in some way, that it might be harder to continue to grow with them going forward. Does that make any sense? I've talked about a nonfiction book that I think might fall into that, quote, part of me category. The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down by Anne Fadiman, a study that is a memoir-like narrative paired with basically medical anthropology. It was one of the earliest videos on this channel that I made, and it's somewhere between fun and embarrassing to look back at how nervous I was on camera then. Prompt number 9, name 3 booktubers whose content inspires you. There really are so many, and I feel quite strange picking out specific people, but I'm going to try. I guess first I should mention Steve Donahue. Steve is pretty much the opposite kind of booktuber from me. He's massively extroverted, teasing rather than overtly earnest as I can be, and not only opinionated but quite comfortable sharing his opinions far and wide. He frequently claims that he is a leper, a pariah, and that people hate him because he smells. And sometimes they don't want to watch his channel for that or other reasons. Personally, I love his channel and I love him for a wide range of reasons. First, I often learn about the existence of books, both books that are forthcoming as well as books that were published long ago. Steve reads everything, and I can't get through his videos without adding at least one volume to my TBR. But it is the personal things that have mattered the most. Steve is now my real-life friend, whom I've visited several times now, and he offered me a space to talk about my grief after the death of my spouse in a fully open way. At a time when I worried that showing my sadness too much here on Booktube might scare people off, he embraced it. Steve was open to hearing not just sadness, but sometimes some moments of pretty deep suffering. And he listened without immediately trying to make things better. He just listened. And he also talked with me about how grief changes over time. Doesn't really go away, but shifts into a different mode. And since David's death, very few things have been more meaningful to me than that. Of course, the other big gift he gave me was the opportunity to write for Open Letters Review, the encouragement to write for other venues, including ones that pay, and also the amazing editing of my work that he's been willing to provide. I think I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, Steve. The second person I want to name is Pat from Book Chat with Pat. In only a bit more than a year on Booktube, she's become its beating heart. She's likely to be one of the first people to decide to respond to someone's new tag, to film an amazing video that will make everyone start imagining their own answers, and then to welcome a huge number of booktubers, both new and old, small and large, to jump in too. She holds us together and energizes us. She also makes deeply thoughtful videos about the wide variety of books she reads, and there are few people as open and curious about reading new things as she is. And the books she's loved for a long time inspire my favorite little series on her channel where she talks in detail about texts she used to teach to her students. I'm not always sure why I sometimes feel connected to some people the very first time I meet them, or even when I just first see one of their videos. Pat is one of those people. Last summer, I thought we might have a chance to meet in person. Unfortunately, for a few reasons, that meeting couldn't happen. Still, meeting Pat in person is on my bucket list. Thanks for everything, my dear. There are 1,000 more people I still need to name, but for today, I'm going to fill the last spot with Shawn from the channel Shawn Breathes Books. His videos almost always make me laugh and think. I love watching his many guests, booktubers with whom he discusses bookish articles in current circulation, authors either local to him or from somewhere else in the world, or other serious readers who don't have Booktube channels. Shawn was, I think, the first person who ever asked me to do a buddy read. And more recently, he reached out to me at a time when we were both needing to talk about a particular world event that was disturbing us both. And we didn't know exactly what side the other person was on. Shawn wanted to listen, to ask questions, to learn, as well as to share how he felt with someone who also wanted to learn. We set up what he started calling a Zoom date, where we would each compare blouses, serve cocktails, and talk about books and politics and life. The first date was wonderful, and we've had several since then. So let's go forward. On to the final prompt. Share the love. It can be challenging to find your audience. Name 3 booktubers who you think need more hype. I think I want to answer this question pretty regularly in forthcoming videos with new choices each time, possibly breaking them up by categories of some sort. For the last little while, I've been hearing a lot about resentful and misogynistic young men in American culture. I'm very glad these kinds of young men are not part of my daily life. And today, I want to express my appreciation to a few of the thoughtful young men of Booktube. I want to name 3 gentle, brilliant young men at 3 different levels of, quote, young. First is the wonderful Joshua Kribo, who is remarkably well-read, especially for someone who is still a college student, and so open to new books and ideas. Just recently, I watched his version of the Quick to Judge tag, and I just loved hearing him read aloud. The second booktuber I want to mention is Aaron Facer. I love how peaceful his videos always make me feel. Like Joshua, Aaron is widely read and highly curious. He has almost 2,000 subscribers now, and you should do yourself a favor and go join in. I loved his recent video on various publishers who publish reprints of classics, Penguin, Oxford, Modern Library, etc. He goes through the level of floppiness, the tint or shade of the paper, the typical size of the font used, the critical apparatus available, etc. It makes me want to fill my library with beautiful matching editions, as I mentioned on a recent video of my own. Finally, I want to refer you to James's channel, Quaint and Curious Volumes, which has roughly 1,000 subscribers. James has this charming way of talking directly to viewers. Most booktubers do at some level, but watching James always makes me feel like I'm sitting right across the room from him. In addition to having a very calm demeanor, James is very funny, which is just lovely. And you will love his dog Louise, too. As for specific videos of his that I've especially enjoyed recently, I've been absorbed in some of his older ones, in which he discusses his reading the early books of Proust, which I've had on my own bedside shelf lately. I also highly recommend his video from a month or so ago called There's Always Money in the Classics, about republishing classic literature. It's actually quite an interesting pairing with Aaron Facer's discussion, and utterly different. Well, that will do it for this video. Thank you so much, Jessica, for this lovely tag, and thanks to all of you for joining me today here on Hannah's Books. See you soon.